I didn't know my life was about to split cleanly in two because of one sentence. My husband once laughed and said, "If we ever divorced, you'd walk away with nothing." At the time, I smiled and answered the way I always did. Okay. I said it lightly, like it didn't sting, like it didn't lodge itself deep inside my chest and stay there. For 9 years, Ryan earned more than double what I did. He worked in tech marketing. 6 figures, bonuses, stock options. Meanwhile, I repaired HVAC systems across Charlotte, climbing ladders, crawling through attics, fixing other people's broken air conditioners in the middle of summer heat waves. Solid work, honest work, but not glamorous. Everything important was in his name: the house, most of the savings, most of the retirement accounts. And every time money came up, that quiet fear whispered inside me, if he leaves, what do I actually have? 3 weeks ago, I was planning our 10th anniversary trip to Europe, comparing affordable hotels, calculating how many overtime shifts I could take without burning out. I thought we were stable, maybe boring, maybe predictable, but solid. Then I opened our shared iPad, and everything collapsed. What followed was the worst month of my life: betrayal, panic, sleepless nights staring at the ceiling, doing mental math, realizing that if Ryan left me, I might lose the house, the savings, and 9 years of shared life. I genuinely believed I was about to be financially erased, until I walked into a quiet law office in North Carolina, and my divorce lawyer looked at me, smiled softly, and said, "Your husband's affair didn't ruin you. It legally protected you." I'm still processing what that means, but I'm telling my story now because if you're a woman standing in the wreckage of a marriage, terrified you'll lose everything because you earned less, you deserve to know what I learned. Sometimes the person who planned to leave you with nothing ends up paying for every choice they made. My name is Rose. I'm 38 years old, and for the last 12 years, I've worked HVAC repair across Charlotte, North Carolina. I fix what stops working: air conditioners in August, heaters in January, systems people don't think about until something breaks. Ryan and I met 11 years ago at a friend's housewarming party. I remember him standing near the kitchen island, wine glass in hand, talking confidently about marketing strategies and career growth. He looked polished, put together, like someone who knew where his life was headed. I like that. I've always liked people who seemed certain. Back then, he wasn't making 6 figures yet. Neither of us was. We were just two people in our late 20s, building something from scratch. We moved in together after a year, married 2 years later, nothing extravagant, a small ceremony, close friends, family. I remember thinking, this feels grown up, stable. As Ryan's career took off, mine stayed steady. I never resented that. HVAC isn't glamorous, but it's honest. I worked long days, came home exhausted, and still cooked dinner while he answered emails late into the night. When his job demanded travel, I adjusted my schedule. When promotions meant longer hours, I told him it was worth it. I believed marriage was an economic partnership, even if the numbers weren't equal. But slowly, quietly, that imbalance crept into how I saw myself. Ryan didn't rub his salary in my face. Not overtly. It was subtler than that. Comments like, "Don't worry about it, I've got this," or "My credit score will make this easier." The house we bought 6 years ago? His name was primary on the mortgage because his income qualified us. At the time, it felt practical, logical. I didn't argue. His retirement accounts grew fast. Mine, not so much. Most of my paycheck went to daily expenses: utilities, groceries, car maintenance. His went into savings, investments, future plans. And somewhere along the way, I internalized a dangerous belief: I am replaceable. I never said it out loud, but I felt it, especially when I interacted with his coworkers. Educated, ambitious, young, people who spoke his professional language in ways I never could. Still, I thought we were happy. We weren't wildly passionate anymore, but we were comfortable, predictable. I mistook that for security. Ryan's family liked me well enough, but there was always an undertone. His mother once said, smiling politely, "Ryan really carries a lot on his shoulders." I knew what she meant. I also knew I was the one who made sure his shoulders didn't collapse. Looking back, there were signs I ignored. He became more protective of his phone, more vague about work trips, less interested in our shared routines. When I asked questions, he'd say I was overthinking, that work was stressful, that I should trust him. And I did. because trusting him felt safer than confronting the possibility that everything I'd built my life around could disappear. 3 weeks before everything blew up, I was researching anniversary trips late at night, comparing prices, planning something meaningful but affordable. I wanted to show him I still cared, that I was still invested. While I was planning our future, Ryan was already imagining his exit. I just didn't know it yet. There wasn't a single dramatic moment when I first felt something was wrong. It was a collection of small things, harmless things, things I told myself not to overanalyze. Ryan started traveling more for work. That wasn't unusual. His role had always involved conferences, retreats, off-site meetings. But this was different. The trips felt vague, short notice, details blurred together. "Which hotel are you staying at?" I'd ask casually. "I don't remember," he'd reply, already reaching for his keys. "It's all booked by the company." He used to text me when he landed. Now, sometimes hours passed without a word. When I mentioned it, he said his schedule was packed, meetings back to back. I believed him because believing him was easier than sitting with the discomfort growing in my chest. At home, he became distant in a way that didn't look like anger. It looked like distraction. Like his mind was somewhere else, somewhere he didn't invite me into anymore. He stopped talking about work in detail, stopped asking about my day. When I told him about a difficult HVAC job, an elderly couple whose system failed during a heat wave, he nodded, but his eyes didn't stay on me. I told myself this was what happens after years of marriage. Comfort replaces curiosity. Familiarity replaces attention. But then came the comments. Subtle, almost careless. "You're so steady, Rose," he said one night, scrolling through his phone while I folded laundry. "I really appreciate that about you." Steady, reliable, predictable. At the time, I took it as a compliment. Now I hear what it really was. A comparison. His friends started acting strangely too, a little stiff around me. Conversation stopped when I entered the room. Once, at a dinner party, someone joked about workplace romances being inevitable in high-pressure industries. Ryan laughed a little too hard. I remember watching him laugh and feeling something twist inside me. His family didn't help. His sister asked, "Are you happy, Rose?" in a tone that suggested the answer should be no. His mother commented that Ryan seemed restless lately and wondered aloud if marriage sometimes limits personal growth. Limits. I began questioning myself. Was I holding him back? Was my stable, unambitious life making his exciting career feel smaller by comparison? Instead of confronting him, I adjusted. I tried harder, cooked more, asked fewer questions, told myself not to be needy. I didn't want to become the insecure wife who pushes her husband away with suspicion. Meanwhile, Ryan's phone never left his side. He angled it away from me when he typed, took calls in other rooms. If I walked in, he'd lower his voice or end the call quickly. Once, late at night, I reached for the shared iPad to check the weather for an early job the next morning. It lagged. Storage full. Photos syncing. I remember sighing in annoyance. Technology always breaking at the worst times. If I'd closed it then, none of this would have happened the way it did. But I didn't. I decided to clear some space. And that's when I saw a message preview that didn't belong to me. A name I didn't recognize. A sentence that made my stomach drop. "Can't wait to see you tonight." I stared at the screen for a long moment, telling myself there had to be an explanation. A coworker, a project, a misunderstanding. But my hands were already shaking. And deep down I knew. Every moment I'd explained away. Every doubt I'd swallowed. Every time I'd chosen trust over instinct. All of it was about to make sense. The iPad felt heavier in my hands than it should have. I told myself I wouldn't open the messages, that I'd close the app, walk away, pretend I never saw the preview. But my fingers moved before my mind could stop them. The conversation thread opened. Months of messages loaded instantly. Not days, not weeks, months. The name at the top was Lily. At first I skimmed. My brain refused to absorb the words properly, like it was buffering, trying to protect me from the full impact. These work trips are the only time I feel like myself. I know this is complicated because of your marriage, but what we have is real. Rose is sweet, but she doesn't challenge you the way I do. My name, typed casually, discussed like a personality trait, like a limitation. I felt nauseous, not metaphorically, physically. My stomach twisted so hard I had to sit down on the edge of the bed. The messages weren't just sexual. They were intimate, emotional, strategic. They talked about a future. Ryan wrote about feeling trapped, about outgrowing our marriage, about how he needed someone who matched his ambition, someone who understood his world. Lily responded with admiration, validation, youthful excitement. She was 26, ambitious, educated, everything I had quietly feared I wasn't. They started in January, at a company retreat in Asheville. I scrolled through photos, selfies in hotel mirrors, scenic views disguised as work travel, restaurant receipts tucked between flirtatious jokes. By the time I reached the end, my hands were numb. I heard the front door open. Ryan was home. I didn't move, didn't hide the iPad, didn't prepare a speech. I just sat there, the screen glowing between us like a confession he never intended to make. He froze when he saw my face. "Rose," he said carefully, "what's wrong?" I held up the iPad. His shoulders dropped. Not in guilt, in resignation. "How long?" My voice sounded unfamiliar to my own ears. He exhaled slowly. "Since January." My chest tightened. "Are you leaving?" He hesitated, just long enough to hurt. "I don't know. I need space to figure things out." That's when the panic hit. Not just the emotional devastation, though that was crushing, but the practical terror. He earned more than double what I did. The house, the savings, the retirement accounts, all mostly tied to his income. If he left, I could lose everything. "I thought we were solid," I whispered. "We are comfortable," he corrected gently. "But comfort isn't enough anymore." I wanted to scream. Instead, I asked, "So what am I to you?" He didn't answer right away, and that silence told me everything. That night, I barely slept. I lay awake doing mental math, house equity, savings, retirement balances, years of shared life reduced to numbers and percentages. I thought about a coworker who'd gone through a brutal divorce after his wife out-earned him. I remembered his warning. Courts don't care who cheated. They care about income. By morning, I was convinced I was about to be financially erased. That's when I called a divorce lawyer. I walked into Iris Montrose's office expecting damage control, how to protect my truck, my tools, maybe scrape together a small share of equity if I could prove contribution. Instead, she asked one question that changed everything. "Do you have proof of adultery?" I showed her everything. Texts, photos, receipts. She smiled. And for the first time since opening that iPad, I felt something shift. Not hope, but possibility. I don't remember driving home from Iris's office. I remember gripping the steering wheel too tightly, the radio playing something upbeat that felt deeply inappropriate. The sky looking exactly the same as it had that morning, like the world hadn't noticed my marriage collapse. Iris's words echoed in my head. Adultery in North Carolina doesn't just justify divorce, it changes everything. I should have felt relief. Instead, I felt disoriented, like my fear had been flipped upside down so fast my body hadn't caught up yet. That night, I sat alone at our kitchen table, the one we'd picked together because it was practical and timeless. My phone buzzed with messages from Ryan. I didn't open them. I kept asking myself the same questions. What did I miss? When did loving him stop being enough? Was I ever his partner, or just the stability that supported his ambition? I replayed every moment I'd dismissed, every time he'd come home late, every business trip I'd waved him off to with a kiss, and a reminder to call when he landed. The worst part wasn't the betrayal. It was realizing how thoroughly I'd blamed myself. I thought my steady job made me boring. My practical mindset made me limiting. My loyalty made me predictable. Now I saw the truth. Those things had simply made me easy to underestimate. When Ryan came home that evening, I didn't raise my voice. I didn't cry. I didn't throw the iPad at his head like movies tell you you're supposed to. I just said, "I spoke to a lawyer today." He stopped mid-step. "A lawyer?" His tone sharpened. "Already?" "Yes." "Rose, don't you think that's a little dramatic?" He sighed. "I told you I needed space. This doesn't have to be a war." A war, as if he hadn't already drawn battle lines by planning his exit while sleeping beside me. "I'm not trying to punish you," I said quietly. "I'm trying to understand what happens if you leave." He looked uncomfortable, defensive. "I'm not planning to leave you with nothing," he said. "That's not fair. You told me I'd walk away with nothing if we divorced." That was a joke. It didn't feel like one. I asked him if he was still seeing Lily. He didn't answer right away. "I need time," he repeated. That night I realized something important. There was no version of this where I waited patiently and didn't lose. So I stopped waiting. The next morning, Iris filed the paperwork. We didn't wait for a year-long separation. We filed based on adultery. Ryan was served at his office. 30 minutes later, my phone rang. "What the hell, Rose?" His voice was sharp, panicked. "You're asking for spousal support from me?" "I'm asking for what the law says I'm entitled to." This is insane, he snapped. You can support yourself. That's not the point. 2 hours later, his tone changed. Baby, he said softly, we need to talk. This is all moving too fast. That night, he cried, told me he loved me, said Lily was a mistake, said we could fix this if I dropped the adultery filing. Funny how remorse arrives the moment consequences appear. I recorded the call, sent it to Iris. She told me something I needed to hear. You're not being cruel, you're being cautious. And for the first time since everything broke, I slept. Not well, but enough to know I was done apologizing for protecting myself. Once the divorce papers were served, everything sped up. Ryan didn't just react, he unraveled. His texts came in waves. Anger, guilt, negotiation, desperation, sometimes all within the same hour. You're being vindictive. I know I hurt you, but this is too far. We can go to counseling. Just drop the spousal support thing. The spousal support thing. Like it was an optional add-on, not legal protection for the person he betrayed. I didn't respond. Iris had warned me. No contact unless necessary. Let him reveal himself. And he did. His family got involved almost immediately. His mother called first. Her voice was calm, disappointed in that way that always made me feel like I'd failed an invisible test. Rose, Ryan is under a lot of stress right now. This legal approach feels extreme. Extreme. Not the months-long affair, not the lies, not the careful planning. I told her gently, I'm not doing this to hurt him. I'm doing this to protect myself. She paused, then said, he always carried the financial burden. I ended the call shaking. His sister texted next. Everyone makes mistakes. Destroying him financially won't fix anything. I stared at the message for a long time before deleting it. Meanwhile, work became my refuge. HVAC calls didn't care that my marriage was imploding. Broken systems needed fixing. Air needed to flow. There was comfort in problems with clear causes and solutions. Then the evidence escalated. When our apartment lease ended, we split belongings. It was awful. 9 years reduced to boxes and silent coordination. While packing, I found his locked desk drawer open. Inside were printouts, articles about North Carolina divorce law, asset division, spousal support factors, typical settlement timelines. Dated December, a month before the affair started. There was also a notebook. Pros and cons. Pros: keep house equity. Protect retirement accounts. Cons: Rose might seek spousal support. Pros: I can afford better legal representation. Cons: workplace relationship could complicate things. My hands went cold. This wasn't a mistake. This was a strategy. I took photos, sent them to Iris. Her reply was immediate. This strengthens your case significantly. Friends started talking too. Kate, one of Ryan's old friends, admitted she'd known since February that he was planning to leave. He said you'd grown in different directions, she told me, that he was waiting to figure out finances. James, a coworker of his, was more blunt. He assumed you'd be reasonable, non-confrontational. Translation: I'd accept whatever scraps he offered. The timing became clear. December, research divorce law. January, start the affair. Spring, emotionally detach. Summer, file and move on, leaving me with as little as possible. While I was planning our anniversary, he was planning my exit. And then his career began to crack. HR investigated the workplace relationship, policy violations during the Asheville retreat, formal reprimand, removed from the advancement track. Lily requested a transfer to Austin. Suddenly, the affair didn't look so exciting. Ryan called me again, voice tight. We need to be reasonable about this. I asked him about the December research, the notebook, the planning. Silence. I was scared, he finally said, about my future. Your future, I repeated. He hung up. Iris smiled when I told her, not unkindly. Your case keeps getting stronger. The numbers she walked me through felt surreal. Monthly support, house equity, half the retirement funds accumulated during marriage. All the years I'd felt financially small, invalidated in one meeting. But what unsettled me most wasn't the money. It was realizing how thoroughly he'd underestimated me, and how completely the truth was catching up to him. The strange thing about hitting rock bottom is that it doesn't always feel dramatic. Sometimes it feels quiet. By the time the court date was scheduled, the chaos had dulled into a heavy, constant ache. The adrenaline was gone. The righteous anger hadn't arrived yet. What remained was exhaustion. I was sleeping in a small rental apartment across town. Bare walls, a mattress on the floor, my clothes still folded in boxes because I couldn't bring myself to decide where anything belonged. At night, the silence was unbearable. No hum of the house we'd shared. No footsteps in the hallway, no familiar weight on the other side of the bed. Just me, staring at the ceiling, wondering how 9 years could dissolve into paperwork and court filings. I questioned everything, not just my marriage, but myself. Had I ignored my instincts because I didn't think I deserved better? Had I stayed quiet because I was afraid of being replaced? Had my sense of worth really been that fragile? The worst moment came unexpectedly. I ran into Ryan at the grocery store. We froze in the cereal aisle like strangers who shared too much history to acknowledge casually. He looked tired, older. The confidence that used to anchor him was frayed at the edges. "Rose," he said softly. I nodded. "I never wanted this to hurt you," he added, like that somehow mattered now. Something broke open inside me. I went home and cried for the first time since everything began. Not because I missed him, but because I finally understood how alone I'd been in that marriage long before it ended. That night, I called Iris and told her something I hadn't said out loud yet. "I feel guilty," I admitted, "about the support, about the money, like I'm taking something I didn't earn." She didn't hesitate. "That feeling is exactly why people like Ryan assume they can get away with what they did." Her words landed hard. She reminded me of everything I'd contributed, the stability, the emotional labor, the years of quiet support that allowed his career to flourish. "You didn't earn less," she said. "You earned differently." Still, doubt lingered. I wondered if I was becoming someone I didn't recognize, someone hardened, calculating, vindictive. That fear of losing my sense of self was darker than anything Ryan had done to me. For one night, I considered settling, dropping the adultery filing, taking less, walking away quietly, just to make the discomfort stop. But then I opened my phone and reread the notebook photos. Pros, keep assets. Cons, Rose might fight back. Fight back. I wasn't fighting back out of spite. I was fighting back because I finally understood my value. That realization didn't feel empowering at first. It felt terrifying. Because once you see your worth clearly, you can't unsee how long you accepted less. That was my lowest point. Not despair, but clarity without comfort.